Okay, here's another but God moment. I picked up this shirt to go out and cut the grass. It's an old shirt I had from when I was in a business, and it's asked me how. Somebody asked me about my products. But did a video earlier today that talked about how a lot of my people that don't look like me have asked me how can I help them understand what I'm going through. And in that video, I talked about, I don't really know how to answer that except, ask God maybe. But then I was going through some things. I was cleaning off the shelf, and that space right there where you can see some books out of was this book. Renewed in His Presence is the title of the book. And I picked it up and turned to this one particular spot that was talking about transform to do His will. And it was talking about Moses in the burning bush experience. It says, think again about Moses. Remember the experience he had with God out in the wilderness when he saw the burning bush. What remarkable encounter took place before Moses ever went into the land of Egypt to deliver his people from slavery. Moses was walking through the wilderness, minding his own business. He probably wasn't even thinking about the presence of the Lord. But just then, God came and met Moses there on the mountain. His holy manifested presence changed Moses forever. God's presence made Moses resolve to give him purpose. It gave him both a plan and a knowledge that he could fulfill that plan because of the change God had brought in him. Before this burning bush experience, Moses was in the same place we find ourselves in so much of the time. He had gotten a glimpse of God's destiny for his years before. But after making some mistakes, he had put God's plan on the shelf and settled into a life of tending sheep in the wilderness. The same thing can happen to us every now and then. As we're praying and worshiping God, we might get a glimpse of the plan God has for us. But some of us keep putting that plan on the back shelf. We keep shrinking back from it. Or sometimes we don't have just a glimpse of the plan. We know exactly what God wants us to do, but we keep making excuses about why we aren't following His plan. I remember one time a businessman stopped to talk to me for a minute. He said, Sister Hammond, God wants me to do such and such with my business, but I don't know what all my business associates would think if I did that. This man knew the will of God, but he wanted to obey God halfway. The other half of him wasn't sure if obedience was worth the cost. He isn't an isolated case either. Unfortunately, this is a testimony of too many Christians. God gives them a glimpse of His plan, but they decide they just not ready to do all God wants them to do. They may want to cling to some things that hinder their Christian walk, such as relationships they know they could give up or should give up. So they shut God out because they don't want to hear what God has to say. People in that kind of spiritual state may wander in the wilderness for a long time until they have their own burning bush experience, where God's presence enters the sense to transform them and prepare them to fulfill His plan. So I say to you, how many times have you wanted to speak up when you saw or you thought there was injustice for someone who didn't look like you? Or how many times have you agreed with someone who didn't look like you and you told them that, but you didn't have enough courage to stand and verbalize it so that everybody around you knew how you felt? Because it might cause a disturbance. I may look bad. They may not understand. But for God to transform you, when that little voice inside you hear tells you, this is what I want you to do, and you shove it out because you say, well, how do I know that was really God? How do I know that wasn't Satan? How do I know? You fill in the blank. You know, you felt it. I have felt it. There are lots of times that I have spoke up about injustice. But then, I'm sad to say, I have to say, there are times I haven't. Because maybe I would have. It wasn't that I didn't want to. I was busy. I was doing something else. I was on my way somewhere. I was late for a meeting. I was. Maybe I prayed. But I know in my heart of hearts, I could have stopped and done something different. So, I don't know. Maybe you think I shouldn't get involved in politics. Many of us know there are things that we've seen happen in politics that we know are wrong. We just say, I'm just not going to vote anymore. It does not any good. I'm just not going to vote. I don't think that's the answer. I think there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into giving somebody like me the privilege and the right to vote. And it's just like when we stand and we say to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, that wasn't written for blacks. But I say it. I say it not as a pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, but because that flag is supposed to stand for one nation under God, and I'm praying that when I'm saying it. I'm not just saying it just to be saying the pledge allegiance to the flag. I'm saying it because I pray that we will become one nation under God. For 4 years, I have watched that pledge be somewhat pushed aside, of the meaning of it. I even see people who now stood with this current political administration, our president, who are now saying enough. And they're taking that stand. So, as someone who has a right to vote, who has social media, and can say how you really feel, pray about it. I'm not saying to do it because I asked you to.